Okay, in lesson 4, we continued adding fractions with unlike denominators, but now we're working with fractions that were larger, the product. Okay, so our first one here, we're going to do two models, and we're doing 3/4 and 1/3. So we're going to do the fourths here. There's halves, fourths, and I'm shading in 3 out of 4. And on this one, I do the thirds, but I'm going to do the thirds horizontally. It says 1/3. Now I'm going to combine the two models. My thirds I'm moving over, and then I'm moving my fourths to my thirds. And this allows us so both models look identical, so we can see, and we know that the common denominator was 12 for both of them. And here we end up with 9/12, plus over here we had 1, 2, 3, 4/12. And that's going to give us 13/12. Well, 13/12 is equal to 12/12 plus 1/12, which equals 1 whole and 1/12. Our next model, we have the first one being 3/4, so I'm going to go ahead and split them up into quarters, and we're shading in 3 out of 4. That's our 3/4. Now this one's our 2/3, and I'm going to split them horizontally into thirds. There's 1/3, 2/3. Now I'm going to go ahead and transfer my thirds over to combine it to my quarters, and I'm going to transfer my quarters to my thirds. And we can see here this is once again common denominators were 12. And on this one, we end up with 9/12. On this one, we end up with 8/12, which gives us 17/12. Now, 17/12 is equal to 12/12 plus 5/12. So it equals 1 and 5/12. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw models again. This time we have 1/3 and 3/5. So here's 1/3, 3/5. So I'm going to split this one into thirds and shading in 1/3. And this one here I'm putting into fifths. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're shading out 3/5. There's 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. Now I'm taking my fifths to my thirds. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now I'm taking my thirds to my fifths. And I can see now here that 3 times 5, that's going to be 15 is our common denominator. And here we have 5/15, 2, 3, 6, 9/15. That's going to give us 14/15. So this one here, we did not end up with a fraction that was greater than 1. On our next fraction, we have 5/6 and 1/2. So here we're doing 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to add a block on the end here. 6. And we're going to shade in 5 out of 6 of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now here we're going to do our half. And here's 1. Half. Now we're splitting our 6 by half. Now we're going to take our 6, we're splitting our half. There's 1. That's So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need one more for 6. 6. So we can see here that the common denominator is going to be 12. And on this one here, we ended up with 10 twelfths. On this one here, we ended up with 6 twelfths. So we end up with 16 twelfths, which equals 12 twelfths plus 4 twelfths. So that's going to have 1 and 4 twelfths. Now I showed you earlier how you could reduce like 4 twelfths to simplify. You would end up finding a common factor, 2. 2 times 2 would be 4, and 2 times 6 would be 12. I take out the commons. Now I still have 2 6. Well, I still have common factors of 1 times 2 and 3 times 2. Take out the commons, and it's 1/3. So this would be equal to 1 and 1. F. Now F says 4/3. So I'm going to have to do a whole and a next one. And this is for 4/3. And then over here, I'm going to do 4/7. And you can see we're doing thirds here. And I'm going to shade in 1, 2, 3, 4/3. Now over here, I've got sevenths, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we're doing 4/7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4/7. Now I've got to take sevenths across. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now I've got to bring my thirds over here. And we can see that our common denominators are going to be 21st, because it's 3 times 7 is 21. And over here, we've got 21 21st. And over here, I've got 7 21st, which are going to give us 28 21st for this first model. Our second model for 21st is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3, so it's going to be 12 21st. Add these two together, we're going to end up with 40 21st, which we know that would equal 21 over 21 plus 19 over 21. So it's going to be equal to 1 and 19 21st. Sam had 2/3 liter of punch and 3/4 liter of tea to take to a party. How many liters of beverage did Sam bring to the party? So we look at a tape diagram here. We can see they had this here, which is going to be 2/3 liter, and this is punch. And this one here was tea, and it's a 3/4 liter, and it wants to know the total. So we can see we got to add these two together. So 2/3 plus 3/4. So let's go ahead and make our model of 2/3 and 3/4. Here's my 2/3. And here's my 4th. Now I've got to move my 4ths over. And I got to move my 3rds to my 4ths. And we see the common denominator is going to be 12. And this is going to be 8 twelfths. Plus over here, it's going to be 9 twelfths, which equal 17 twelfths. 17 twelfths, which equals 12 twelfths, plus 5 twelfths. So that's going to be 1 and 5 twelfths liters. Mr. Sinofsky used 5/8 of a tank of gas on a trip to visit relatives for the weekend and another 1/2 of a tank commuting to work the next week. He took another weekend trip, and used a 1/4 tank of gas. How many tanks of gas did Mr. use altogether? So, here's this, and we know this is 5/8, and he says half, and the last one was a 1/4, and wants to know the total. Now, I can add these. Basically, I got 5/8 plus 1/2 plus 1/4. And I can add these in any order I want to. And I'm going to add them 1/2 plus 1/4 first. So I'm going to do my model. The first one's half. Next one was quarters. Do 1/4. Now I'm bringing my quarters over. It's a very bad model here. And on this one here, I'm bringing my half. And so over here, I can see that I have common denominator of 8. And this ends up 1, 2, 3, 4/8. Plus 2/8 equals 6/8. But I still have the 5/8 to add from up here. Plus 5/8 equals 11/8, which equals 8/8 plus 3/8, which means it was 1 3/8 tanks of gas.